Hi, I'm Lise Laurin, and I'm with Earthshift Global, and I'm going to give you a brief introduction to what we call allocation in LCA. Bit of a quandary when we have a process that makes more than one thing. You can think about raising a cow that creates meat, milk, and leather. How do we apportion the cattle feed to each of those co-products? Or you might think of a factory where we're making more than one thing. How do we apportion the impacts to each of those products that we're making in our factory? The first thing we want to do is, if we can, divide the process. So for example, the milk, we don't want to allocate the impacts of the milking machine and the energy of the milking machine to the meat. We only want to allocate that to the milk. So we're going to divide the system and just allocate the milking process to the milk. Same in the factory. If you know exactly how much energy is used to injection mold one piece, then you're going to allocate that energy appropriately. If you have a different energy consumption to injection mold a different piece, then you're going to use that. Often we only have one number for all our factory, especially when we're starting off. So we may just allocate in a different way. We might allocate then based on mass. For example, if we're injection molding different pieces, we might allocate our factory energy based on mass. We might allocate between the meat and the milk based on protein content. We might do it on caloric content. For fuels, we might look at energy content. Within a factory, we might use properties such as cycle time or temperature or the number of components to allocate the impacts of the factory to our different products. Something that makes sense based on the product coming out. The other way, which is less desirable according to the ISO standards, but often used, is the price or added value of the product. So you could allocate based on the price. Another thing we can do is to expand the system boundaries. So here we might have a brewery making beer and making food for animals. We could, in fact, instead of apportioning that brewery, we could instead subtract the animal feed from a different process from the impacts of the brewery in order to result in the impact of the beer. This is often called a consequential approach. It assumes that making a product from one process reduces the need to make it from a different process. And if you use this approach, you want to make sure it's based on actual market conditions. And typically you don't want to use this approach for single product studies. Remember that cow doesn't have any boundaries, that there's nothing saying how much of that feed is actually going to the meat, milk, and hide. So there's no right way to apportion impacts. There's no right way to allocate. You will find in product category rules, product environmental footprint category rules, they will provide you with a prescriptive allocation method. If you aren't following a PCR or a PEFCR, then you want to make sure that you test your results by doing a different allocation method. Those different allocation methods provide insights into how impacts might be viewed under different market conditions, which is pretty important. So I thank you. If you have any questions, please email me at lisa@earthshiftglobal.com. Thanks for your attention.